All right, guys, I'm here on the outside, and I wanted to show you a little bit more about how I'm disassembling the floor, particularly the bottom plate of the stud wall. Again, I talked about how this thing was pretty much completely stapled together on the floors and the walls, and how it's making it difficult to take apart. So what I decided the best way is to pull out the staples from the outside that's going into that single 1x2 that's along the rim, and then at that point I can pull out the 2x2 and 1x2, which is nailed together collectively easier. The problem, though, and I'll show you here, is the danger of hurting the aluminum. That was a mistake I made. I think I can remedy that, but if you look along the edge, there's definitely been some damage from the process, and these are a couple that I already have pulled out, so I just want to pull it out and kind of show you. The problem with doing it this way is it's bending up. So if you have comments about how I could do this better, this is one side, I'm gonna have to do the other side later, but what I thought about doing was using the oscillating tool, cutting through the, I gotta have two hands on it for that, but cutting through the staples, which I don't know if you can see very well, and then pulling it out with pliers. But one of these, I started to do that here, and it proved really difficult to cut through. So I'm just reverting back to using a good old flathead and a hammer, and then kind of pulling it out like this. And yes, it's gonna bend the metal a little bit. You see that guy? And then I put it in this container here for recycling. But I don't see any way around doing that. So it's gonna be tedious, but to get this wall out, you know, everything's connected and stapled together. This is what's gonna have to happen. So anyway, and then I gotta cut the bolts. I've already cut 4 bolts out here along the edge. If you can see, there's a bolt there. So all these little cross members have bolts on the edges, and then 2 on the inside, with the exception of kind of the, you know, the header over there that's kind of got like 5 along it. So I'm gonna cut all those bolts out. It actually ate through my first blade. I took it back. It was a carbide blade, so I got a different brand. Hopefully this one can cut through those bolts, the carriage bolts, without issue. So, all right, carry on. All right, so I want to close out the rest of the day here. It's getting a little dark, so hopefully you can still see. This is my little makeshift table here. So the last place I left you, I was on the other side, showing you how the staples were quite hard to get out and how everything is attached together. So I want to quickly show you this. Now, if you look, I discovered the left side, or the driver's side of the trailer, had these much longer, can you see that? They're much longer staples. And then over here on the passenger side, or the right side, starboard, right? If you were for a boat, are much smaller. So all the ones here came out without a problem. I just simply put the hammer up there, the nail pulling side, and pulled them out. So that tells me that at some point that whole underside there in the underbelly was re-tacked up. And I don't know if I showed you it before, but I'll review the video. That I noticed that whole left side has been replaced as well, based on a different style bracket and actually different fasteners. So anyway, there was a big difference there. So this side was much easier, but nonetheless, I can show you this. This is one of the pieces that came out of the side. You can see how bad the shape it's in, and this is why I had to pull it all out. It was all dry rot here underneath the window. But this is the 1x2 that sat closest to the wall and was stapled from the bottom, and it's nailed into a 2x2 and sandwiching the veneer wall, and then the whole subfloor would come all the way here and sit on this. So how I'm doing it differently in the new one is I'm replacing this with a 2x4, and I'm putting the subfloor all the way to maybe about, well, it depends, so part way, and then I'm going to have the stud wall. And I don't really have a bottom plate per se, but I'm going to have L brackets along holding it up, and I'm going to use some of the same wood. So you'll see it, so I don't need to talk about it a whole lot here. And then I will fasten it from the underside, but not with staples, probably screws, something you can take out, replace easily. So that's that. You can see it's in bad shape. There were bolts various ways. Remember the cross beams, there's bolts about 4 on each. So this piece, you know, has one here, and it had about 4, I think, down here. So anyway, there's that. This I took off from here. So this is a box here. It's the battery box. So in the time lapse that you'll see prior to this, there's a lot of wires. Those wires were essentially supplementing the lights, the voltage from the car, and making sure, or rather just making sure the amps are enough to light the trailer. It was really dim without the 12 volts. So best I can guess, and how, looking at the wiring, this battery that was in this box, which you could access from the outside, was making sure the trailer lights were bright enough, and it was also even running all the little interior DC voltage. I think it all came off of this battery, which was no more. Trash bucket. So over here, just quickly, last little few things. Here's some of these old bolts, and if you can see them, sorry it's so dark, they're really rusted, and I ate through another blade, but this time it lasted twice as long, so I'm not returning it as a defect. These just, this thing has had, what, over 40 years of life, so, you know, bolts back then probably were made with a little bit more steel or whatnot, so those are recycled. And lastly, I really wanted to save as much as I could of this old wood. This is what I believe to be redwood cider, and you'll see though where there's a lot of glue and staples I have to pull out of here. I have a little scraper tool from Oscillating Tool that can help, but you know, it seems like I'm only gonna be able to save a few of them. But anyway, you see this white chalk? This is where it was touching the cross member, the metal, and the underbelly. So the underbelly had a little piece of wood separating it between the underbelly and the frame, and then this was touching the metal, and where it wore through, this white stuff is where it was actually not touching the underbelly anymore, but it wore through and was touching the trailer. You know, it's probably harmful, but oxidation or whatever, but you know, you can see it here again around the bolt. And so what I do is I cut off the pieces of this wood that's rot, and you know, this is dark. If you can see this, can't see it too well. Maybe I'll show you tomorrow. But I cut the inside, and you can see this dark bit right here. This was worse. It's like if you cut into an apple and you see it's dark, you keep cutting until it's good. If you don't want to just throw the whole apple out, hopefully you don't want to be wasteful. So here, you know, that's obviously in bad shape. So I kept cutting, you know, until, well, you see it's bad there, and then it's a little less there. And then I save whatever I can. So right now, a lot of those pieces are being saved to hoist up the inside. So I'm just gonna end this here, and I'll show you the inside tomorrow. Tomorrow being Sunday, so it should be another at least half day. And I have both sides propped up right now, so it's a bit of a precarious situation, because without those, this whole thing can kind of just fall in on itself. And if I were to pull up the I'll show you tomorrow, but if I were to pull it, you could see how one side's bowing more than the other. So I need to get this floor in and the wall braces formally, so this whole base plate that runs along here effectively, that needs to be quickly replaced. So that's it. I'm done for the day. Thanks for watching.